All right, Avs Nation, welcome to another episode of Locked On Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, we will be looking at Alex Newhook. Is he going to be part of this second round for the Avalanche? Is he still going to be on the sidelines? We don't know, but we'll just talk about that. We will look at the Western Conference and the other series that are going on right now and kind of look at them. We know we don't know who our second round opponent is going to be. We know the matchup between the Wild and the Blues. Obviously, we'll take a look at that. And if you were to throw a candy at anybody, what would it be? Basically, what candy do you hate enough to get rid of that you would throw it at somebody? We're going to talk about all that and then some. Let's get to it.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Locked On Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Follow us on social media, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions to lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. So on today's episode, we will be looking at the other series going on. Some surprises there for me, definitely. Incredible. Yeah. I don't think the Avs got the memo that your series is supposed to be 2-2. They just went right through that and got to the 4 immediately.
We were so laser focused, we just didn't even pay attention.
With the exception of a couple, before the games, when we're recording this, it's like all but one of them are 2-2. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at rust versus rest, and there's some arguments to be made on both sides of that. We'll take a look. Is it overblown? Is this too much time off for the Avalanche? We'll talk about that. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you were to throw a candy at somebody, and we're referencing the Skittles being thrown at Cale Makar, we're not talking about throwing that candy at someone on the ice.
No.
What candy do you hate so much that you are willing to throw it at somebody? Kyle and I have our answers for that. So why don't we start with Alex Newhook, sir? Because
Who's he?
He's that guy that was not in round 1 at all. Which was a surprise to everybody. And I'm trying to find things in articles and interviews and stuff like that where there's some tell on why he's not there, other than Jared Bednar just wanted experience. And maybe that's me reading too much into it. And it's like, I need info. Give me more info. Is he hurt or anything like that? I don't think he is. I think that's just the way that Bednar wanted to go. So now the question is, do you continue this? Did he just not like the matchup with Jared Bednar did Jared Bednar not like the matchup between Alex Newhook and the Predators? And that's the main reason. And then does that change depending on who the next opponent is in the Wild or the Blues?
Yeah, it was very interesting to see Newey not make the lineup at all, especially with how his last month of the season, it was not bad. It was not bad. He was getting there. You kind of feel like it might have been experience, but with how he started out the year, you don't really know. And then when you're looking at the possible matchups for the Avalanche coming up in round 2, does Newhook, what's the difference in Nashville in this next round? Is it just experience? Is it you don't because eventually Newhook's got to get this experience somewhere.
Yes,
he's got to get playoff experience at some point in his career. You can't keep him out next year if you get back to this point saying you don't have enough experience when you ran the gamut last year. Mm-hmm. Eventually he's going to have to see the ice. It was very interesting, and with Cogliano going down, you thought maybe he was going to work his way back in, and LOC made it in. It's very confusing, and I really don't know what's going on. And I also looked for a reason, and I could not find one.
No, I don't. And I remember Jared Bednar saying like he'll get time. I remember after game one, they said he'll be used,
Hmm.
and he wasn't. So like was he talking about round one? Was he talking about later in this playoffs? Like, I mean, you can't just assume you're just going to keep winning these games. And maybe if that's what it was, that they just kept winning, and the way that they're winning, he just keeps those lines together, that roster together. I get that, but you're right. He needs to get some time in here sooner or later, and in the playoffs, the physicality doesn't ever go away.
No.
If that was your concern, that he's not that he well he I mean he's your average hockey player. It's not like he's not physical, but I think Bednar was just concerned he might get tossed around a little bit too much, maybe. I don't know. And I
I
think because of that, he kept him out, but it's not going to go away for round two.
I wonder if it was one of those, like he said, he's going to get his experience, but he wasn't experienced enough to see the Nashville series. I wonder if it was one of those, take in the playoffs, see what you're going to like encounter. Round two, they're going to start putting him in that lineup, letting him like start catch his speed. What I really feel like is going on here, they're kind of, we talk about this deep shark tooth depth roster. Um, I wonder if they're doing like a mini, how we ended the last 2 weeks of the season where if you wanted a night off, you got it. I
Yeah.
wonder if they're saving individual talent. I wonder if we're going to be questioning why is JT Confer not in this next round. Um,
That
it's
would be. I
like
mean, I know where you're going with that, but um,
it's going to be one of those when the lineups are announced, you're looking at the scratches and you're like, well, it's good that Newhook's in there, but why is insert name here scratched? And I wonder if it's just a rest thing instead of the production they bring to the ice.
yeah, maybe it's matchups. You know what I mean? We always say that Bednar is just one step ahead, and you put your faith in him and your trust in him, and maybe he just knew that the best matchups were without Newhook, and for the next round, no matter who it is, maybe he likes the matchups a little bit better and he throws him in. But it's a little bit odd that if you are going to play him, you're playing him later into the playoffs when it gets even more stressful and everything is even more meaningful. So you have this guy who doesn't have experience, and the first time you're going to throw him in there is in the second round. But that's not unheard of with the Colorado Avalanche, because if you remember last year in the middle of the series against Vegas, they brought in Sampo Ranta.
Yeah,
That was
that's right.
that was his first time on the ice. So I think it just goes back to Jared Bednar. Whatever he feels is the best matchup. Doesn't matter how much experience you have or don't have. That's who's going to fill out his roster. And if he feels good about Newhook against the Wild or against the Blues, he's in there.
I kind of wonder if it was one of those situations where, like, he had LOC and Newhook sitting at one point before Cogliano went down. I wonder if, like, Newhook was set for, if there was an injury sustained to the top two lines, Newhook would be that guy to fill in for that role in the next game, and LOC would be the fill in for the bottom two lines. Because if you would have done it the other way around, like put Newhook in there and he was injured, and you would bring in like a Burakovsky, say, or someone of that talent, like it would be a little bit of a, you wouldn't be as confident. Like Newhook filling in that role, you're like, okay, yeah, we know what he can do. It'll fire you up. You don't feel like you're losing a piece. You feel like somebody's stepping into that role. And I wonder if that's what the logic was, but we'll find out. Like if he sees the ice in this round two, well, we know it was just a matchup thing, but it was very head scratching all 4 games that him and UC Saros were sitting there drinking juice boxes.
Yeah. The juice box man. Yeah, it was a surprising, but like you mentioned, the beginning of the year, and they sent him. This is just another learning experience for a young player. I still think he is a big part of their future, and this is just, I'd love to see an interview with him. He hasn't done anything. I don't think he's really big on social media or anything like that. So
he's been in every Avs 360 that Altitude's put out in the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's doing something as a stair climber or meeting kids. I wonder if he's getting kind of back in that mindset that Bednar didn't like. The big time hockey guy. Like, he's literally doing all these fundraisers. Like, he's doing all this extra stuff. And I wonder when it's coming down to like, hey, we got to focus on playoff hockey. If there's like a little bit of like disconnect or a pushback, like, hey, it'd be nice to have you with the team instead of kissing babies and shaking hands. Like,
I mean, if those are team sponsored events, you can't get mad at him for doing that stuff. I mean, that's comes with the gig. But I don't know. I was surprised even when they had the first opportunity to take one of them back on the roster, and it was Logan O'Connor.
Yeah, no,
and it wasn't Alex Newhook. Maybe it's one of these things where if we don't see him at all, there's something is going to come out after the season is over, and the insiders do some digging as to why this happened. But it's a bit of it's weird because it's like a bit of a head scratcher. But at the same time, look what the Avs did. They swept a team. So everything's okay. And you're not, and that's the other part. Say he does play game 1, round 2, and the Avs lose. I'm not saying it's all going to be on him, but if that's the big difference, people are going to be like, why is Alex Newhook in there now? Some people will, not everybody, but now you have to question it. You just swept a team 4 games in a row. Do you upset that no matter who you play in round 2, or do you go the matchup route? I think that's a fine line that Jared Bednar has to walk right now, and it'll be interesting to see how he what he comes up with and his final decisions for it.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see where he goes with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, let's hear from Rock Auto, and then we will take a look at what's going on around the Western Conference in these playoffs, because interesting stuff. So first, Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry when you have a computer and access to rockauto.com in your home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. It's a family-run business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer, so go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck right locked on in the How Did You Hear About Us section so they know that we sent you to them. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. So playoffs in full swing, obviously, for the first round. We did brackets. We have some people that are involved with us. We did one of those bracket challenges, I guess. For me, the series that is blowing me away, and I'm fine with it because I always like a good upset, is Edmonton and the LA Kings. I had
you
Edmonton
laughed at me. You laughed at me.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody did.
I'm used to it at this point in my life.
But I saw Edmonton kind of running away with this thing, and you have to be like, oh my God, like, is there a curse going on here at some point with teams like Edmonton, with teams like Toronto? Although Toronto did win as we're recording this, so they're up. I think they're up 3-2 now.
They did win
so
that.
They're up 3-2. They won. They came back and won that game. So if they're up 3, they are one game away from getting out of the first round. And holy God, if they don't again.
Oh my word!
But Edmonton's in the same boat. Edmonton's struggling to get out of the first round, and to me, it looked like a juicy matchup with the Kings, inexperienced, young, overachieving for the year, made the playoffs. Good for you. Teams do that. But you kind of feel like once those teams get to the playoffs and they're facing a good team in Edmonton, they don't stand a chance. And they're tied at 2 right now as we're recording this. And when you're listening to this in the morning, they're playing right now as we're recording this, so you're not going to know what the final score is. But I didn't see. I thought Edmonton, this would be a clinching game for Edmonton, not a game that they're still fighting for the series.
Yeah, especially like you mentioned that series, like the Edmonton Kings series, like it shouldn't be this way. Like Edmonton, especially with Draisaitl, McDavid, like they should be handling business. Oh, Tyson Barrie, the other superstar. And like, but the Kings are scrappy. Like they're like D1, the Mighty Ducks like level. Like they're young, scrappy, and like they have something to prove, and they want to get out there and do it. It's just you could say the same thing for the Washington Florida series. Like Washington has no business beating the Florida Panthers, and they've done it twice.
I want to see how Washington responds because they had a 3-1 lead in that series in their hands. What, 2 minutes away from having that 3-1 series? And then they let it go, and then they lost in overtime. And now, I mean, if teams that maybe are not Washington, because they are seasoned vets. They are one of the oldest teams in the league. A lesser team, maybe a team like Los Angeles, young team. If that happened to them, they might cave. I don't see Washington doing that, but God, that was in your hands.
But and then it's like the Eastern Conference version of the Avalanche going down. Like the Avalanche took care of business 4-0, like kind of dusted themselves off to the next round. Like Claude Giroux chose to go to Florida and could be bumped out of the first round. Like that's how crazy these playoffs have been to this point. Yeah. So I just find that absolutely humorous.
Yeah. And then the series that we're watching, the Blues and the Wild. And again, as we're recording this, there's like a minute and change left in the first. And the Wild have a 2-1 lead right now. And didn't the Blues score first? They did. Ryan O'Reilly scored 5 minutes in. So Kaprizov's got 2. the two that the Wild have are by Kaprizov. So, yeah, not surprising. So I don't think it matters who wins this game. I feel like we should just make it 3-3, go to the 7th game of the series. And that's the one that we are going to be watching. So do you have a preference between the Blues and the Wild for the Avs next matchup?
How, like, when you're talking matchup, it would be, I think the Blues would be a better matchup for the Avalanche.
Right.
But with the way this team is operating and the mentality this Avalanche team has bought into, it would just be so fitting to not just get past the second round, but hop over Minnesota while you're doing it.
Yes, and that goes back to what we were talking about before the playoffs even started, and who do we want their first matchup to be. And a part of me was like, I want Vegas to sneak in so we can be the team that takes them out. Yeah. And the same goes for Minnesota. That's our biggest division rival. You want to be, and I'm sorry, but I still need retribution from that 7-game series that they lost years ago now.
Yeah.
That still just irks me. I think you match up well with both of them. But I think you match up better against the Blues. And Minnesota is kind of like another Nashville team. They are a gritty team who will bounce you around, and they have better goaltending. And I say better goaltending because of what the goaltending was for Nashville.
Yeah.
So I think
go from Connor Ingram to Marc-Andre Fleury. I think that's a little step up.
A little bit. So I think, and then you have to take into account literally how the Avs are playing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's not just let's look at these matchups and who's got the better depth and who's got the better, top 6 that's all stuff that's fine. How are the teams playing right now? And the Avalanche are playing obviously incredibly well. And both of these teams, they're going to be duking it out. So you're going to be getting a little bit of a battered team in game 1.
And it's going to be a major step up for the Avalanche from round 1 to round 2 because Nashville, they didn't have a single goalie that was serviceable. Minnesota has 2.
Yeah.
St. Louis has 2. So it's going to. You have Bennington and St. Louis and Husso behind him, and you got Andre Fleury and Cam Talbot in Minnesota.
I just want to see who was in net tonight as we're recording this for Minnesota, and it's Fleury.
Yeah,
Fleury and Bennington are in goal. So
it's a definite step up. It's going to be hard to hang a 7 spot on both of these teams.
Sure.
It's just honestly, when you look at both of these teams, like the depth for Minnesota isn't there, but I think talent-wise and how they play the game, I think the Avalanche handle St. Louis better.
Yeah. But, I mean, they've been – Marc-Andre Fleury has struggled against them recently. You know what I mean? They've had his number.
Yeah.
So that'll be – both series will be interesting, but you just have to feel confident on how the Avs are playing right now. It doesn't matter who's in their way. You'll blow right through them. You would think.
Yeah, like
you would hope.
The records are in the regular season are basically the same. It was 2-1 and 0 against St. Louis in the regular season. And it was 2-1 and 1 against Minnesota in the regular season. So it's just
isn't it crazy how the Avs swept Nashville obviously, and we're all like second year in a row that they've done that. That's all well and good. Nobody's overly celebrating right now because we know what happened in the second round next year. And if you win the first 2 games of round 2, that's exactly what happened last year. So even if you go up 2-0 in your round 2 series, you're still just, even though it's a completely different season, and I'm not a superstitious guy, but it has the exact makeup of what happened last year. So even if you go up 2-0 in round 2, you're gonna have those fans who be like, okay, that still means nothing.
Oh, we will lose our mind if we win like 7-3 in that first game.
Yeah.
It's the script is just repeating itself.
Well, that's what happened last year with the first game against Vegas. Because Vegas I don't remember who they played in the first round, but they had gone 7 games, and then the Avs got them the very next day. They blew them out of the water, and Vegas was like, that's fine. Like, we're exhausted. You can have that game. And then it was a little bit of a struggle from there on out. So
a Marc-Andre Fleury Vegas team.
It was. Yes, sir. So, all right, let's hear from Built Bar. And while we're on the topic of, Built Bar is not candy. It's a protein bar, but, it tastes like a candy bar.
Sure does.
With Cale Makar getting Skittles pelted at him. What's the worst candy that you would not need in your Halloween bag? And when you are walking on the street and you have a candy war on Halloween night, what's the first candy you're reaching for to start throwing at people? But first, Built Bar, you know it, you love it, and summer is coming. And with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. And Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on your family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks, in your cooler. Keep them nice and cool because frozen Built Bars are just as good as regular Built Bars. The best part, they are healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. With most Built Bars, they contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to an average candy bar, which has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So go to Built.com right now. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Once again, that promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. You never like seeing fans get unruly and throwing things on it happened at Yankee Stadium a couple weeks ago, throwing stuff on the field. It's just
the Calgary fan throwing the hot dog at Kessel like at the end of the season.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's just, if it's things like, the catfish and stuff like that, like that's part of the appeal and everything. Okay. But when you're deliberately pelting people with, anything, it's just lifetime ban. Just get out of here.
Don't throw Skittles. They're the best.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you're throwing Skittles. Why would you throw Skittles? Are a good candy, and they probably cost you $25 for that bag.
True.
So, maybe not that much, but you know what I mean.
They got to make up ticket prices somehow in Bridgestone.
Yeah. So it got me thinking, like, which candy do you know, every year it's, especially around the Halloween time, but if you are in a, you know, walking down the street and you see your sworn enemy walking towards you and you just happen to have a bag of Halloween candy, and on your satchel, what are you reaching for to pelt that person with in terms of candy?
It is the one candy I have never seen in a store, but every grandmother has it. It's that strawberry candy.
Oh, yes. You can never find those things.
You,
And where do they buy those things?
I have no idea. You can never find them in a store, but every bank that you go to, every grandmother's house, they're sitting in a dish on the table.
Do they have like, is there a brand name for those?
I don't know. I don't know what they are.
We need some investigation into this, because I have never ever seen those in a bag for you to be able to purchase in any store.
No, they exist. I feel like a fairy brings them in the middle of the night and drops them.
I was gonna say, I feel like grandmas around the world just get them delivered to their house. Like once you become a grandmother, like they are automatically delivered to your house. You don't have to do anything. The government knows that you become a grandmother, and you get monthly shipments of the strawberry wrapped candy.
And like you could throw it at somebody, because if you ever like took it out of that strawberry wrapper, it's hard, but it's got like a gel in it. I don't know what that substance is.
I don't know.
So you can like throw it, and it's going to stick to the said enemy. So it's really going to annoy them.
What you could do is like kind of like take a bite of it, so the
gel is full grenade style.
The gel gets activated, and then it launches. It's like a sticky grenade in Halo. Basically, is what it is.
Those grandmas know what they're doing.
Yeah. On the other hand, the other grandma candy with like Werther's Original, don't get rid of those. Those are great.
No, those are the best.
Do you remember years ago? This is off topic, but they had like there were like those Lifesaver like swirls, and they were, like strawberry and cream and orange. Oh. They were supposed to be bringing those back. Just what I heard. If they are, I gotta find them, because those were fantastic. And more like, I feel like there's always a line in the sand of if you're a chocolate guy or if you're like a sweets, like a hard candy guy.
See, I'm like, I'll take the sweet stuff.
I see. I'm more of the chocolate guy.
I'll do Reese's all day long.
Yes.
But give me the sweet like Skittles stuff.
So I mean, for me, there's a handful. There's a couple that I kind of wanted to like discuss, and two in particular. Honestly, never been a candy corn guy.
Ooh, fighting words.
And I feel like you can get some good leverage with those and kind of whip those around. But what about those like dots that were on paper?
Oh,
do you remember those things? Like you're eating half hard sugar, half paper, literally.
Yeah, that's
so.
Or
good, like
the candy dots. The like those like super like the dots that came in that yellow box, and by the time you get back from trick or treating, it's just a mass of gelatin.
Yes, yeah. Imagine, yeah, and those. But for good like weaponry, you know those necklaces that have like the candy on them.
Yeah.
So what we used to do is like you bite half of it and then you pull it back and let it go. And it's like a slingshot, and you're firing the other half. Dude, like that can cause some damage. I'm telling you. So
we'll have like you and your friends on one side of the street, and everybody else with like black licorice just like swirling on the other end of the street.
Black licorice is one of those things that I've developed a taste for. Like when you're a kid, no kid under the age of probably 25 likes black licorice, but I don't buy it. But if it's around, it's not the worst anymore.
No,
I don't know. I want to know. I'm sure this will be a fun conversation in the YouTube chat of candies that people don't like, that they would launch at their sworn enemy. Let's hear it. All right, Abs have some time off. That will beg the question: is that too much time off? Is where they have to knock some rust off? The rest is always good. I'm not going to sit here and say the rest is bad. Rest is always good. What's your take on? Because this is probably more of a topic, especially it'll be watched very closely maybe in the first like 10 minutes of game one.
Yeah. Uh, I will just say, go back and look at the calendar. Uh, it's hard to remember, honestly, with the season the Avalanche put together. They were shut down for COVID, and then the league was shut down for COVID. Ironically enough, after the Nashville game and that debacle, and that was like a 2 week break. And when they
Yeah.
came back, that month was January. And Avalanche fans that have followed all 82 games know what January looked like. It was 5 wins in a row, and then they dropped that overtime game with too many men on the ice and didn't lose another game all month long. So this team knows how to rest. There's a lot of old players on this team that would love the rest. And honestly, you could sit down and you can do what everybody else is doing. You can watch that Minnesota and St. Louis series and really get a good idea on what you're about to face.
Yeah, I think the rust will get overblown. If it is like the first 10 minutes of the first period of game one, that's all it will be. I mean, you have 6.5 games to go to, that's not going to be rusty at all. Yeah, it might be there for a few minutes. So what? It's on home ice. Maybe you can use the crowd to kind of like pump you up a little bit more. It'll be there, but it's whatever. It's the first few minutes of period one of game one. And then after that, you're going to have your usual abs. You've played 82 games, plus the games in the preseason, plus 4 games. Like, you're in shape. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't hit the ice for a week, it's literally going to take each one of these shifts, 2 or 3 shifts, and then everything's back to normal.
And especially if this Minnesota St. Louis series goes 7, I think the rust factor, if you want to say that's there, over the exhaustion factor of going 7 games in that series and then going to the next round, I think that's a moot point. And it goes right back to just skill on skill.
Well, look what we were just talking about last year with Vegas. Yeah. I mean, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a week of rest or coming out of a 7-game, maybe, battered series where you might have to play the very next day? Don't tell me back-to-backs suck.
Yeah.
Every team hates back-to-backs, but you got to do it. When you do it in the playoffs, that's definitely not ideal. So, yeah, I think the Avs will have a little bit, but they're too good of a team for it to last so long. It's not going to last an entire game one. Get real.
No.
It's going to last a few minutes, and then you'll see your normal Avs, I feel.
Yep.
So, all right, everybody. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Keep an eye on these games. I'm sure people are watching, their specific series that they're honing in on, but they're all good. This is what makes the NHL playoffs great. So thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On NHL for your second listen, as you will get caught up on everything going on with these games around the playoffs for now. All right, we will be back tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in today. That's always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and I am Chris Maselli. It's the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.